What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with the optimal March Madness bracket. If you follow along to this channel regularly, this is probably a little bit out of my comfort zone, being college basketball, but it's right in my wheelhouse when it comes to finding the quote-unquote optimal way to do something and having a lot of fun with this project. So just like how many 100 million other people, I'll be filling out a bracket or two this week for March Madness. And I sat down and said, there's got to be an optimal way to do this. There's got to be, the best way to fill this out. And what I've come up with is just one way. It just scrapes the surface. It's a fun little idea. It has worked for me in the past and works best in big fields. For example, in the ESPN Bracket Challenge, when there's going to be millions and millions of entries, this is a really good format to use. Not your 10-person friends and family contest or, your work contest with maybe 25 or 30 people. This is much better suited for larger fields, and it is a lot more game theory involved. So what the heck am I talking about here, and where do we go next? So there's a lot of unique aspects about March Madness and the way to fill out a bracket. Unfortunately, you only know the matchups for a handful of days before you have to make all of your selections and submit your bracket, right? So you find out Sunday who is going to be in the bracket. You have until Thursday, sometimes even earlier than that, to get your bracket in. So there's only a few days of research and being able to grind this out. So I threw this together very, very quickly. If I had more time, I probably would have taken a different route here. But what you're looking at right now, and if you're listening to the podcast version of this, I'm showing ESPN's, this is the Bracket Challenge, and they have a tab that says who picked whom, which is literally just going through and calculating everyone's brackets and showing you how far the public has each team going. So for example, 97.7% of people have Duke advancing in the first round. 41% of all brackets have Duke winning the entire thing, winning the national title. We'll talk more about that in a second, but what this does is it gives you every single team and what percentage they've been picked, or in like daily fantasy terms, what percentage owned are they? So if you look at this from a daily fantasy sports perspective, if we knew all the ownerships of players up front, it would make a lot of decisions for us because we could use a lot more game theory. That's why we're always trying to project ownership. But with March Madness and ESPN's bracket, they tell us the ownership, so we can use that. So we're going to take these numbers and we are going to compare them to right here. This is 538's March Madness predictions, where they have the actual probabilities of the teams going on through each round. So for example, according to 538 and the actual probabilities of Duke winning the national championship, it's only 19%. Now 19% is the highest percent of any team, but when you look at the fact that 41% of the field on ESPN picked Duke, that's a leverage spot, right? So, 80% of the time, these 40% of the people are going to be wrong that Duke is going to win the national title. So those are the leverage points that we're looking at. Now, to kind of clarify this, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. In past years, I've gone through and taken all the money lines, the odds to win each of the first round games and kind of calculated it this way. If you want to do it kind of down and dirty, just take 538's odds here. 538, doesn't care about public perception. They're actually just looking at, true probabilities, or what they calculate to be true probabilities. And it would be even better, of course, if we knew all the money lines for all the potential combinations of games. Like if UNC plays, Kentucky in the Elite Eight, what would that money line be? If we had all of that up front, we could even get deeper. Obviously, we're never going to get there. So what I did is I took all of these numbers and put them into just a spreadsheet and just did some data manipulation. And right here in column B, you'll see for each team, for each round, the probability that they win that round. Okay, so Wofford has a probability of getting out of the first round 52% of the time they'll get out. Well, I'm sorry, excuse me. 52% of people picked Wofford to get out of the first round, but 538 has them with a 63% chance of getting out of the first round. So that is a 10% difference. So we are looking for the biggest differences in true probability of getting out of the round versus public perception. Okay, those are the leverage points. So for example, if you're playing an ESPN's bracket challenge, you are wrong to pick Duke to win the entire thing. And I know what you're saying, like, oh, well, they might win the whole thing. They're the favorite. They could do it. I know that, but you are wrong to do so from a game theory standpoint, because 41% of all brackets have Duke winning it, and they're only going to win it 19% of the time. That is negative leverage, bad side of it to be on. So what I've done is I've gone through each one of these rounds, and you'll see some are more interesting. Like Vermont also has a huge leverage number. Vermont, has a plus 9.7 leverage, which means 538 has them to get out of the round of 64 21% of the time, but only 11% of brackets have this. That would be a leverage point, but this is not an exact science. There's other ways we can do this, but we will have to have a human component to this, because that is still only a 21% chance for Vermont to get out of the round. Even though it's a super high leverage point, it's not a very likely one. So what I've really done is I've taken my stands on the national champion, and I have also, used a little bit of manual effort to try to find the coin flips. So if we keep going down, Nevada, 50% of the brackets have them winning in the first round, but 538 has them winning 58% of the time, which is almost 8%. So what I did is I went through all of the first round matchups to find the highest leverage points, and then also chose my final four and my champion by using the highest leverage items. And I will show you, this is my optimal bracket. Just to get down to the nuts and bolts of it, it has Virginia winning the entire thing, with Duke and Gonzaga in the final four, along with Kentucky. So 3 number ones and a number 2 seed. The reason I got to this is if you go and look at the actual national championship odds, Virginia, it has a 17% chance to win the national title, but is only projected to do so in 6.7% of the brackets. Gonzaga was also like one of the very high leverage teams. I could have picked either of them. I decided to go with the highest leverage team. The rest of them are pretty efficient after that, until you get down to Duke and North Carolina, which makes complete sense. They are very public, very popular teams. More of the general public is going to choose them than they should, right? So Duke, being 42% owned, only winning it 19% of the time is a huge spot to avoid. North Carolina, similar, not nearly as bad, but still pretty bad. 14% of brackets have them winning it all. They have a true odds of about 9% to win it all. So these are the types of situations that I was looking for. As I went through this, I had to make some really interesting decisions. So I decided, I didn't want to, picking Duke is a bad leverage situation in a lot of rounds because of how popular they are. But I decided to draw my line in the sand with them going to the Final Four and then losing, which basically was the highest leverage point. So basically, a lot of owners had, if you pick Duke going to the Final Four, you certainly have them winning it all. If you don't have them winning it all, you have them losing in earlier rounds. So I felt the biggest, and I can see it here, 27%, the biggest leverage point was having them lose in the Final Four. So that's kind of what I did. I will make this sheet available. I'll put it in the comments. You can come view it and see what I'm talking about. And then if I can link to my bracket, I don't know if I can do this on, I'll find a way to do this. I'll either print it as a PDF or something. And I'll also put it in the comments below so that you can see what my bracket is. There's definitely some decisions that I had to make manually. Also, this is for this year, but this is a strategy that I use year to year. This is pretty evergreen. You can use this and just plug the fields in later. I did it last year. It ended up really well. I think if And then the year before that, I used it where I think it was what? I think it was Gonzaga and North Carolina in the finals. Don't quote me on that. Maybe it was the Final Four, where basically like if Gonzaga would have beaten North Carolina, I think I would have won the ESPN bracket challenge. I was in like the top like 0.001% of it or something like that. That's still like 800 people better, but it's really, really close. So this allows you to take those really small leverage points and 5% when you're talking about 8 million brackets is a big deal. So I hope you enjoy this. I think it's something that is a fun exercise every year, and we'll see how it turns out. Talk to you guys soon.